morning, students. We're back by popular demand. So, we're here to deliver SEL Session 7, which is actually our first session for second semester. So, what do you think we're here to deliver this morning? Okay, I'm not going to do the Jeopardy thing, although I want to. We are here to discuss what you ask, bullying. We thank you and we appreciate all of your feedback and your participation. You said you wanted to talk more or discuss more about bullying situations, and so we're here to deliver an SEL session about bullying, hopefully to provide you with a deeper understanding of bullying, and also some of the things and strategies that you can use if you're being bullied, or if you see someone being bullied, or if you are the bully. But you know, before we actually go off into our session, we have to do our recap. We're going to recap session 6, which was conflict resolution. Mr. Bradley is going to provide that recap for us.
Awesome. I'm excited. Okay, let's talk about SEL session 6, strategies for resolutions, right? First and foremost, we want to acknowledge that there's a problem. Okay. Sometimes the other person doesn't even know that there's a problem. Sometimes we know we have a beef, right? We want to actually acknowledge and be specific about what our problem or what our particular issue is. We want to make sure we're setting those ground rules before we sit up there and get into discussion. Sometimes it can be verbally, sometimes it can be nonverbal, right? Verbally, if you just outline and say, hey, let's make sure we have a nice, calm discussion. Let's talk about the issues that are at hand, and let's keep our voice tones nice and calm. Sometimes that nonverbal of just how we keep our body language. Maybe we sit down versus standing up. Maybe I sit up here and I clap my hands together versus, talking in someone's face, right? We want to make sure we're positive in our body language and how we sit up there and handle situations. Third thing is we want to make sure we focus on that particular issue. Stay on topic. It has nothing to do with what you did in elementary school. It ain't had nothing to do with what happened on Instagram in 4th grade. It has to do with the specific topic at hand, so we can sit up here and address that specific topic. Fourth thing is we want to make sure we're staying positive. We don't want to insult people, right? We don't want to sit up here and be condescending. We don't want to be passive aggressive. We want to make sure we're assertive and actually stating exactly what we're saying and what the issue is. The fifth thing is we want to make sure we listen to everyone else's point of view. Put those active listener ears on. Make sure you're able to actually hear what they're saying and not thinking about how you want to reply, right? I think I'm on number 6, so we're gonna go with number 6, my favorite number. We're gonna look for an area of compromise, right? We're gonna look at a particular spot that we can sit there and both be okay with moving forward. The last thing is we want to create that solution. And that solution might not be to the benefit of one person or another. Right? It's going to be where we can both come to an understanding and we can move forward and being in the same space and not having any particular issues.
That's that meet in the middle that we talk about all the time. And also that coexisting, learning to coexist. We don't have to like one another. We have to respect one another and be able to not like one another and be in the same room and coexist. So that was what we hoped you learned from our SEL Session 6, being able to take some of those strategies to provide conflict resolution in your situations, or taking it to the adults to assist you with that conflict resolution piece. Thanks, Mr. Bradley, for that recap. And we're going to move into our information about bullying in SEL Session 7. And Mr. Cunningham is going to start us off.
Hey guys, I just wanted to say bullying is an issue in schools worldwide. And it may be an issue here at Conyers. Now, just to overview what bullying is, we need to really consider how bullying comes about. And we want to say something when we see something or feel something. We want to get an adult involved. So as we get into this session about bullying today, I want to invite you all at 10:15, log on to the live lit lessons. Bring your issues, your concerns, your questions, your suggestions, anything that you have to the table. You can even bring a bullying scenario in, and we're going to handle that. And we're going to talk about it, and then we're going to also see if we can bring some conflict resolution in there as well.
So here we go. Okay, so let's dive in right into the session, SEL session 7 on bullying. And then now we want you to understand bullying. So we hope with all what we're doing for this particular session that we will examine your beliefs about bullying and harassment, and that you come up with the correct understanding of what bullying and harassment is. There is a clear difference between bullying and harassment. And then there's a difference between someone just being mean and if someone is bullying you. For example, I've had situations in which students have come into the office and said, like this one particular situation, a young lady came to the office and said that another young lady, when she passed, said, "Oh, she stinks." And so we talked more about it, and that was pretty much the only thing the young lady said to her. I asked her, did she respond? She said she didn't. I asked her, had there been any issues between the two of them prior to this particular comment, and she said no. And so in that moment, the young lady was being mean toward the student. She made a mean comment, and that is also not a good thing and could be unacceptable, but it's not necessarily a bullying situation. And so we want you to gain a full understanding of bullying, because that word is just used so much, and then students go home and tell their parents they're being bullied and things like that, and then you kind of everyone gets on an uproar when you kind of hear the word bullying. So we want you to have a clear understanding of what bullying is and the difference between that bullying and harassment, and what you do when these situations occur.
Shoved into lockers or having their heads flushed in a toilet. But the truth is, bullying can be a lot more complicated than that.
Bullies use their power to hurt or control others. And they might make you feel unsafe in places where you should feel protected.
And that's not okay. Your school, sports teams, and after-school clubs have to be safe spaces for everyone. There was a time when I didn't feel welcome at school. Some girls that I thought were my friends had decided I wasn't cool enough for them. Everywhere I went, they either laughed at me, made fun of me, or ignored me altogether. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah, there was a time when I didn't feel safe at school. I started to dread coming to football practice because one of my teammates would always take the drills too far. It didn't seem like anyone noticed. I mean, the coach was too busy focusing on the whole team to see me being bullied.
No one ever has the right to hurt you or make you feel unsafe.
The problem is, bullying is hard to stop. And that's because most people's first reaction to bullying is to ignore it. You may feel like it will go away, but the problem with ignoring it
is that it won't stop, and it might even get worse. Maybe you're embarrassed, or you want to believe that it's not a big deal.
Or maybe you're afraid that telling will make it worse, or that whoever you need to tell won't understand, or be able to help.
But trust us, because we've been there. If you're being bullied, there's only one way to deal with it.
Stop, walk away, and tell an adult. Stop taking the abuse.
Get yourself away from the situation.
And go talk to an adult you trust. Tell them everything.
Parents, teachers, counselors, and coaches' first priority is your safety. Believe me, there are adults that want to help you.
Bullies might scare you out of telling, but if you tell an adult, the bullying is more likely to stop.
The adults in our lives won't tolerate bullying. But we can't tolerate it either. We have to stand up for each other. And we all know, some kids get it the worst.
Last year, a friend of ours started feeling unwelcome and unsafe at school. He was being bullied for weeks just for being different and having different interests than some of the other kids at school.
We didn't want to see our friend get hurt or feel like he didn't belong. So we helped do something about it.
Kids who are LGBTQ, or who are of color, or maybe have learning challenges or physical differences, might get bullied the most. We need to work together to decide how safe our school can be.
Our differences are our strengths. We also know that bullies need help too.
But we can't tolerate their behavior. Never ignore bullying. Never stay silent. You'll help yourself and help your bully more by speaking up.
Stop, walk away, and tell an adult. Even if the bullying happens online or on your phone, speak up whenever you see, hear about, or experience bullying.
Do it for yourself, for your friends, for the kids you've never even met. Always speak up.
It's time we work together to make our schools safer for everyone.
Okay, so now when we look at this video, when we think about some of the things in regards to bullying, we're gonna go over specifically what the definitions are, but then I also want you to, and we'll kind of talk about, once I go through the definitions, about the video, and we'll kind of go a little bit more in depth. So let's start with, what are bullying and harassment? Bullying is intentionally physical, verbal, or social aggression. Remember back to our styles of communication, and when we talked about how we want assertive versus aggressive. So that aggression is something that we don't want to sit up here and even think about doing. It's often repeated over time and occurs when there's a real or perceived power imbalance, So again, it can happen in real time and be specific and actually real and tangible, but it also can be perceived of what we think that particular person is intending. So my perception of Miss White's aggression can be really real to me, right? And her intention might not necessarily be to be as aggressive as she normally is, although we all know she is aggressive.
Why?
So that perception makes me feel uncomfortable, even though her intention might not be to make me feel uncomfortable, just because it could be her natural essence. Right, Miss White?
I am not aggressive. I
Okay.
am assertive.
Okay.
And so let's talk about that repeated over time.
Yep.
So that goes back to the scenario I brought up with the young lady and the other young lady saying, "Ooh, she stinks." Because it hadn't occurred, there wasn't any beef or anything going on between the two of them, and then she didn't even say any more after that. It was just, I guess, for whatever reason, she felt the need to say that about the young lady. But the young lady's perception was that she was being bullied. But there wasn't a repeated thing going on between the two of them, and there wasn't a power imbalance, because the young lady it wasn't a group where other students were laughing at her because of what she said and things like that. So there wasn't a power imbalance in that situation. And that's why I was pointing out that she wasn't bullying her. She just kind of made a mean statement towards her. It was her thought, and maybe she should have just kept it to herself.
And this is so hard for us as adults sometimes, and that's why we really want you to really get and explain this out, because one incident is not a bullying situation. As bad as it could be, as not nice, and I'm going to use an elementary term, this term is always interesting, as unkind as the statement was, it's only one incident, right? But if Now, the flip side of that, to put it on another side of the coin, if every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, for a month straight, this particular person kept making that comment, would that be then a bullying incident, Ms. White?
Yes, we had a situation in which the teacher, the student brought it to my attention. She wanted to be removed from a particular homeroom. And when I asked what was going on, she didn't say anything. She just said she didn't want to be in there. I don't like those kids in there, is what she said. And so I just kind of went to the teacher and had a conversation and say, hey, do you notice anything happening with this particular student? And she said yes. Every time she comes in homeroom, the students will start laughing and snickering as soon as she walk in, and then they were kind of saying things about her. So this was continually happening every time because the student came in late, and so it kind of drew attention to her when she walked in late every morning, and then they were constantly snickering and laughing and things like that. So of course her perception was they're talking about me.
Yep.
And it made her feel uncomfortable.
Yep.
And unsafe in that room. Now, she didn't say anything about what was happening with those other students. It was because I went to the teacher and asked those questions. Then I found out, well, hey, yes. Now, although they didn't say anything directly to her, they never said anything directly to her, it still was a bullying situation because it was happening every time she came in the homeroom. They're laughing and they're talking amongst themselves about her. So it doesn't even have to directly be verbal interaction for it to be bullying, but it was something that was repeatedly happening, and then there was the power imbalance. It was a couple of students, like several students, against this one particular student.
Right. And I think you brought up a really key point too of the teacher noticing this and the teacher being involved in this discussion. The student didn't even come to you with this particular statement. This was the teacher that actually did this. And that's why it's so important to make sure we're having our allies out there and outlining exactly what we need to sit up there and look for these bullying type situations, so we can make sure that this doesn't take place in our school. Okay, let's move on to harassment. Harassment is aggression against someone based on a real or perceived characteristic they have, such as their race, their religion, their sex, or gender. It's serious enough to create an unsafe environment and is a form of discrimination. Now, when we talk about harassment, there's so many different forms of harassment that can take place. It really is. Sometimes it's not as blatant, meaning directly out in front of your face. Sometimes it's very subtle. The biggest thing I want you guys to understand or get is, if you are perceiving these things that are taking place, then you need to communicate this out to an adult. But what happens if, Ms. White, it's an adult that this perception is coming from?
Well, of course that's an issue. That definitely has to be reported to the counselor, parent, of course, administrator, to an adult you feel safe with.
Yep.
And it's very important because we have that where students will constantly making fun of someone, the gender, the LGBTQ community, kind of have those moments where they're being harassed because of their experiences, and they don't say anything.
Right.
I had another student to come and report that this particular student was being harassed because of his sexual orientation. And so we want students to, come, let Mr. Cunningham say that's in the beginning. If you see something, say something. Like, if you feel like you're being harassed, let us know. If you see another student being harassed or bullied, let us know.
Yep. And also remember too, some of the things, sometimes teenagers or preteen teenagers, they do things that are quote unquote, what they quote unquote consider the norm, i.e. calling people outside their name, talking about other folks. And I know we had a big issue with people saying gay to other people, and that was a big statement that again, that's just a form of harassment, and we want to make sure we do not have that taking place.
And so why do people bully? Is there a real answer to why do people bully? There are several reasons, but social factors come into play that cause this bullying to occur sometime. And social factors are just common beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors of a particular group or community. And what that means is that you'll have people in a group that feel like one social factor is people that believe that bullying is just a part of growing up. It's, that's just what kids do. You hear that all the time from many different people.
Yeah, boys will be boys, girls are mean, so I mean, that's okay.
Right, and so that culture is a culture where then bullying is accepted. It's like, oh, it's okay. They don't mean anything by it. Like Mr. Brady said, he's just being a boy, or they're just mean girls. And so that's one of the social factors that cause that bullying to occur, because you'll have the students feeling that, or even some adults sometimes, well, that's just children, that's it's middle school, that's just what they do. And so that social factor is what helps it or feeds it to continue. And then there are also just another social factor is stereotypes and assumptions, and we believe that a certain group of people are to behave or do certain things, and when that becomes out of the norm, it causes people to say things about that student's behaviors. Give
me an example.
Okay, I was just about to say for example.
My bad.
So, a young man that may be tall, for example, and he doesn't play basketball. He likes to collect bugs or something. I don't know, anything outside of playing basketball. Or if he's studious, he's not a jock. It's like, oh boy, you too tall not to be playing ball. So then you'll get whatever he's into. He likes to read. He's in the media center all the time reading. So then he gets picked on for being studious and not a jock. So those stereotypes and assumptions that we have will bring on certain bullying situations. And then there's always that power. The popular students, that the power and the privilege, because people experience privilege based on race, gender, class, and then there are others who aren't as privileged, who will get bullied because they don't have on the Jordans, or they're not the popular kid. There's the kid, there's the 2 or 3 that sits alone on this side, and then you have the 10 that's in the group that have the latest True Religion, Jordan, and all this other kind of stuff. So then the other group just kind of gets picked on, and that what the other group, that 10, that power is causing that bullying situation.
Yeah, and we really hear it nowadays with material stuff. Phones, that's a real big thing.
Absolutely, yes.
We also hear, and one of the factors I did
children bully me because I have an Android.
What? What?
Miss White,
Not an
when
Android.
you go get an iPhone. So I have experienced bullying.
You okay? We're gonna talk about some supports next. We're gonna talk about how we can get over
Just
the
because
stigma of your Android.
Even my own children bully me. Mama, why don't you just go ahead and get an iPhone? Because leave me alone.
Why do you feel it's bullying? Because it's happening over time?
It's
Repeatedly.
All the time. When I send a picture, it's like, oh Lord, here she go with that Android picture. So I am constantly bullied about my Android.
I am here to support you, Miss White. I am truly here. One of the things I did want to bring up before we move on to the next slide is making sure we understand, because sometimes those who have been bullied, especially at a younger age, end up and tend to bully people. So I did want to bring that point up of sometimes when we get bullied in elementary school, by the time we get to middle school and high school, and we turn that table and we start becoming bullies. So we want to make sure we acknowledge the fact of, understanding why people do bully. That's one of the common reasons as well. Okay. We're going to go into the types of bullying, and we're going to give you some specific examples of the types of bullying that we're talking about, and how this kind of goes in regards to what we're talking about. So let's start with cyberbullying. Cyberbullying can be overt or covert. Lord Jesus. Cyberbullying can be overt or covert bullying behaviors using digital technologies, including hardware such as computers or smartphones, and software such as social media, instant messaging, texting, websites, or other online platforms. Cyberbullying can happen at any time. It can be in public or private, and it could be a target of a person that they know or someone that they don't know, right?
And this is a big one for us. This has been many situations we've had here with cyberbullying. It's where a lot of our drama comes from, the cyberbullying piece, because someone, as they say, popped off on their live on Instagram or Snapchat, and so they, screen recorded it, and then it comes back to the school and creates havoc in the building, because now they've seen it, and everybody's ready for the big finale.
This is about 98% of what we deal with in regard to bullying. It starts online and with the cyberbullying. All right, physical bullying. That's normally what's next. I will say this. This is almost kind of age kind of deal. Like my age, older folks tend to think about when we're talking about bullying, we automatically go to physical bullying. It includes hitting, kicking, tripping, pinching, punching, and damaging property. Right? Physical bullying can cause short-term and long-term damage. The reason why I say it's my age is because we didn't have we didn't have the cyberbullying. We didn't have that. You write a note, you post something, you hang something up on someone's desk or table. Or locker. But we didn't have that. So a lot of what we're thinking about is the physical bullying, and that just doesn't happen as often as it does, at least initially today.
And then one of the things, because you're pointing out the difference, that cyberbullying, what I understand and why that part, that type of bullying is so damaging is because it doesn't go away. Because it's there. When someone puts something or puts someone on blast on the internet, or you put an inappropriate video of someone up or something like that, that's for the world to see. I guess in our time, someone bullied you at school, it stopped at school, and that was the end of it. Whereas with cyberbullying, it continues because people can always replay the video. You have a fight and they post a fight, and for the person that was quote unquote beat up, it's just a constant reminder. So that's the unfortunate piece to cyberbullying.
Even if it's deleted, it still probably can still be accessed.
Because someone screen recorded it. So it just almost never goes away sometimes for some people. Because even though we've asked students take the video down or take the comments down, someone has already screen recorded it. At one time, they airdropped it to everybody on 8th grade hall. So it's like
it can open up a whole can of worms, and that's
so
why
damaging.
I want our students to remember what Mr. Cunningham was talking about. He talked about think. Remember what think when he was talking about in our other SEL lessons about think before we post, think before we do things. Think. We want to make sure we think. Verbal bullying and social bullying. Those are the two biggest common types that I think we deal with here at Conyers Middle School. Let's talk about the verbal first and foremost. Verbal bullying incident includes, name calling, insults, teasing, intimidation, homophobic or racist remarks, or verbal abuse. While verbal bullying can start off harmless, it can escalate to levels which start affecting the individual targeted. What you got to say about this one, Ms. White?
So that goes back to even that harassment piece. Like when you're just constantly insulting someone, you don't necessarily know if someone is dealing with those thoughts themselves. We never know what someone is going through. And so when you're constantly name calling and insulting someone, they may personalize it. So you're damaging this person. So it's important, and this is why we always say, just be kind. Or, I was always taught if you don't have anything good to say, then don't say anything at all.
And a lot of times this can start off with the intention of playing too. A lot of times
Playing
we
a
consider
dozen.
playing around, playing a dozen, and then now it's picked up and now it ends up quote unquote becoming a norm. And sometimes that particular person who's playing the dozens doesn't want to be playing the dozens. They just are caught up in the playing the dozens. Social bullying. This is when sometimes when it's referred to, as to a covert bullying. It's often harder to recognize and can be carried out, to the person that's being bullied back to the person. It's designated to harm someone's reputation and or cause humiliation. God,
Yes.
Mr. Bradley is fumbling.
And so that's a lot of that mean girl excluding. Oh, we don't want her to participate. Oh my goodness, I remember this one situation we had where it was a young she was a 7th grader at the time, and she came and she said, Miss White, they said I can't sit at the table. And I was like, what do you mean? And she says, those girls say this is the black girl table. And she was a white girl, and so they told her she could not sit with them because that was the black girl table. And so every time she tried to interact with different groups, they would totally exclude her.
Wow.
So that was a form of social bullying.
Wow.
Like you just totally excluding, and then you're talking to others so that they exclude her from your group as well. So we've had different situations, and this is why we want you to know what this is and what it looks like, so that when you see something, you can say something, because we don't want Conyers to have a bullying issue at all. We know we have it, we've had it, and we want to make sure that we get it under control.
Well, I think like anything, I think it's always going to come up as an issue, but I think if we offer those tools and offer that support, we can simply stop it from becoming a problem. And that's what we want to sit up and make sure we do.
And then, it's spreading rumors. That's another form of social bullying. That is a big one. Mimicking unkindly, and so then everyone you're kind of mimicking someone, and then everyone in the room is laughing at what you're doing.
Sure.
So in essence, they're laughing at that person because that's who you're mimicking. So those are different things of examples of social bullying. Damaging someone's social reputation or social acceptance, another form of social bullying. So we want you to just understand what types of bullying, the different types of bullying are, and also how they are defined, what they look like, and how this next video we're going to go into is the impact of bullying. For those that choose to bully, you need to know what it does to people, because sometimes you just don't know. So let's take a look at this video.
My cousin, he killed himself because he never told no one, and his mom was there for him, but he just didn't tell, and I don't like bullying because of that.
I was bullied, and it was cyberbullying, and even though people think it's not a big deal and I'll just get over it, it's really not as easy and as people make it sound.
You already have that tapping in your head and you're already thinking these things. As soon as someone says it and makes it real, it kind of destroys you, and you start to think about things that you really shouldn't. And I started to die inside from these comments and start to just crumble, and it was awful.
It felt like I was some sort of planet, and this portal had sucked me into this internal darkness realm.
Feeling alone, feeling like you're not good enough for something or good enough for someone, feel like people will be ashamed to see with you, or feeling so down. And when you start thinking of all the things you could do to end it.
The best part was going home and seeing what all these people said about me. It's not like I could just go home and come back to it tomorrow when I go back to school.
but it was my reality. It was my life at one point.
It's kind of, I said a few things to a bully and it made it a lot worse, and at one stage I was the bully saying it back, so it's not nice to be doing it. It just hurts.
It felt like I couldn't escape. It was everywhere I went. Everyone I looked at, they were looking at me, laughing at me. It just made me feel really hopeless, and I could tell people were talking about me behind my back and saying like I'm a loser, other really cruel stuff what no one should have to hear. In the end I just wanted to curl up in a ball in a dark room, in a dark corner, and just never come back.
I got bullied really bad as a child, really bad, and I hated school, and I never finished school because of it.
Well, to be truthful, I went home crying every day because I didn't know what to do about it or how to deal with it. And my mum always used to ask me what was wrong and how I got all the bruises on my legs and all that.
One day they chased me into the toilets and I actually had to lock the door, and even then they were trying to climb in and it was really scary. And this had a really big impact on my diabetes and I had to go into hospital for 4 days.
Most of it was worse because it was mostly about image. They called me fat and ugly, and that affected me quite a lot. Sorry.
Used to come to school and everyone would pick on me. It used to be just, oh, I was the midget of the class, and then I was called gay, and I just thought, what's the point anymore? I just go to school to get picked on, and I just come home and go to bed and just feel awful.
Nearly everybody's bullied, but it really does scar you for life.
You never forget the feeling, so like you'd never forget what happened.
You never forget how bullying made you feel. It costs just £20 to train one young person to be an anti-bullying ambassador in their school.
As you can see, it's quiz time. But let's go, before we go into our quiz, let's talk about that video, Mr. Bradley. One of the things the young man said was, I just go to school to get picked on, and then I go home and go to bed. So for many, most of your time is spent in school. You're in school for a long time, and then for students who participate in things after school, you're here till 5, 6 o'clock, and then you go home and then repeat it again. So if your day consists of students constantly, picking at you, teasing you, insulting you, and things of that nature, that can be very damaging to a student. And this particular video was done in the UK. So you can see that bullying is not just a Conyers Middle thing or an American thing. It's a worldwide issue.
Yeah, it really is. And I guess I think back to my childhood, and I think back to once you become then through it in your childhood, and then you become a parent, and then you worry about this. All these things of the choices we make that I don't think people understand how they truly can affect others. And those are the things I want people to sit up here and actually think about when we're talking about these bullying situations, and when we're hearing about these things, and you saw the statistics about these things taking place. Those aren't just numbers, those are real people. Like, those are real people that are actually going through these things. So one of the biggest things I really want our students to understand is the fact that you can individually, and we're just talking about starting with you, make a change. You can make a change to sit up there and actually not do some of the things that you've seen or you've heard that can hurt people and cause folks to feel unsafe.
So before we make those comments, or those jokes, because a lot of time it was, I was just kidding, I was just playing, and you really may have been, but if someone is already struggling with their own looks, what if someone feels like they look fat or feel fat, or they don't feel as smart and you call them stupid, or tell them when they answer a question in class and you say, well, that was dumb or that was stupid. What if they're struggling with that themselves internally? Then it's almost like you come and you are validating their feelings, so it hurts more, because it's like, well, I am fat or I am stupid. They start feeling that, and it's not good to have those negative feelings about oneself. So that's why it's just not okay, even if you feel like I'm just kidding or I'm just joking, it's just not okay.
And folks know by now, we like to have a good time. Miss White and I love to sit up here and laugh and play and joke around, but never at the expense of someone else. And that's what you have to realize. We can't be laughing at folks and thinking that that's not going to sit up there and affect someone. That's number one. Number two, I always say, and I always don't get when people can't put themselves in other people's shoes. I don't know everyone's situation. I do not. I do know how I want folks to treat my children and how I want to be treated. I'm a horrible speller. Miss White, I can't spell anything. ELA used to be my class that I used to go in with a lot of anxiety, a lot of struggle, because that was not my strong suit. So if someone made fun of me because I couldn't spell anything, I promise you, if I got a B on a spelling test, that had to be like a really, really easy spelling to, like, I was spelling no. And I still had to think about it. So I mean, Mr. Bradley I had my struggles. So you gotta understand, folks, everyone isn't gonna be able to, knock every subject out the park. Everyone ain't gonna have everything that's so fly and so this and so that. I ain't have a lot of clothes when I grew up. I didn't. I don't know about you, Miss White. You seem like you're a little bougie, though. What was it? Well, look at, if y'all can see Miss White's face, oh Lord Jesus, she's like, well, that ain't my story.
It's not my story.
Oh Lord. Oh my goodness.
I'm sorry that
what?
you had that experience.
Yes, no, yes. Oh my goodness.
It's not my story.
It's not your story? Oh Lord.
But I can attest to being bullied. So, these big, beautiful eyes I have. I was called Frog.
Wait, did she just try to give y'all an example while giving herself a compliment? That's crazy. Go ahead, Miss White. I'm sorry. That was so good.
That's how I reversed it. They would call me Frog all the time, or Kermit. And so yes, I was taught. So, parents help with that, because when I said, they always talk about my eyes, my big eyes. And so I had family that always told me I had big, beautiful eyes. And so that was, how I reversed it and not took it personal. Yes, my eyes are big. Yeah. And if Kermit has pretty eyes like me, then Kermit is good.
And sometimes you just, folks, kids are just immature. Like sometimes I used to get criticized about my color and how dark I was. And by the time I got to college, I ain't even gonna sit around again. I ain't even gonna say I ain't even gonna do a Miss White. I'm gonna call that a Miss White. I ain't even gonna give myself a compliment while giving an example. We're gonna call that a Miss White. I'm not even gonna do it with Miss White. I'm just saying, as I matured, I've learned to embrace and love my color. And so in turn, it allowed me to be able to teach that.
What were you about to say?
I was about to say, I did. I got more attention. My first college girlfriend, the first thing she said about me was about my color and how it was a positive and not a negative. And so that was like a wow. Now I ain't gonna lie, that's how she got me. But, you know what I'm saying? So that was one of those things that I was like, that was the first time someone has turned that from that negative comment that has been said by peers in an immature way, turned it into a positive.
Yes, so that is important. And helping, that's the way that we're trying to help those who have been bullied.
Yep.
To not personalize it. As Mr. Bradley said, like, students are immature, unfortunately. Yep. And they say mean things. That's
and it's not to excuse that either.
Not at all. Not at all.
It's not.
That's just what happens.
It is.
And so we want you to understand that you don't have to personalize what someone else is saying to you.
Right.
But definitely report if it's a negative.
And I think that's where the biggest issue that we have. We have to make sure, and I want you guys to walk away from this video understanding and getting the fact that you have to. It is imperative for you to report it. You gotta report it, you gotta report it. And teachers then in turn, now we have to sit up there and do something with that report. And we're gonna talk about that in a little bit too.
But before we do all of that,
quiz time, baby!
Quiz time! Number 1, what do all forms of bullying have in common? A, the result in physical injury. They all make victims feel powerless. They result in the victim losing his or her friends. Or D, they're directed at kids who are small or weak. So I'm going to say, based on the power conversations we've had, the imbalance of power, B, they all make victims feel powerless. Ding, ding.
Number 2, which of the following is an example of bullying? A, tell your best friend you don't have time to get together after school. B, borrow someone's pencil and then forget to give it back. C, purposely preventing one person from playing sports at recess. Or D, telling a teacher when another student misbehaves. C.
C. Hey, purposefully. Okay. Number 3, which word describes the best way to deal with bullying? A, violently, B, quickly, C, emotionally, or D, intelligently? Well, we know we don't want to be violent, and we shouldn't handle things while we are too emotional as well. And so it's B or D. Well, quickly, you want to handle things quickly, but you want to always be smart about it. So let's go with D, intelligently.
Number 4, what can you infer from the fact that large groups are usually not the targets of bullying? A, people who bully often back down when they are outnumbered. B, people who bully never have friends of their own. C, people who bully only pick on people with no friends. Or D, people who bully never pick on more than one person at once. I'm gonna go with A.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Brad. Go ahead. All right. Number 5. Which of the following is an opinion about bullying? A, people who bully will grow up to be nicer. That would be nice. B, adults can help kids deal with bullying. Now that's facts. C, bullying can make people feel bad about themselves. That's double facts. D, people who bully often have many friends. They can, or they may or may not. So it's an opinion, so I'll go with A. People who bully will grow up to be nicer.
I don't get that question, but I mean, that's just me. Maybe it's just me. Number 6, what is one tactic to deal with bullying? A, insult the person. B, step on the bullying person's foot. Weird sentence. C, ignore the bully person. Or D, form a gang to fight the bully person. Well, out of all of these,
of course we're not going to form a gang.
Yeah,
right?
we're not doing gang activity. I'm going to go with C.
Ignore the bullying person. Although we don't want you to ignore at Conyers.
Not at all. Report.
Number 7, where are you most likely to encounter bullying? A, at your local shopping mall. B, on the internet. C, on the bad side of town. Or D, anywhere that people interact. What do you think, Mr. Bradley?
B.
On the internet, yeah, that is true. But I think, you can be at the mall bullying. That's where mean girls really do their work. So let's go with D, anywhere that people interact. Yeah.
Number 8, in the sentence, most adults and kids view bullying with contempt. What is the best synonym for contempt? A, admiration. B, disdain. C, enjoyment. Or D, terror. Miss White.
Well, of course there's no admiration or enjoyment about bullying. It can be terrorizing, especially for the person feeling it or the victim of it. But I think we're gonna go with D, disdain.
Well, that's B.
D. I'm sorry.
It's all good.
B for Bradley, right?
You already know.
Number 9, cyberbullying uses digital forums to make people feel bad. Which of the following is most likely an example of cyberbullying? Hacking into a computer and starting an email virus? Well, that might be a crime. Emailing someone the directions to a concert venue. Engaging in a lively discussion on an instant messaging service. Or D, sending repeated mean or demeaning emails. Of course, we're going to go with D because we've learned that it's repeated mean or demeaning emails.
Repeat that one more time. It's what?
Repeated.
Number 10, last one. What's the best thing to do if you find yourself being mean to someone for no reason? A, try putting yourself in the other person's shoes before you act again. Or B, try to ignore the fact that you're making this person feel bad. Or C, tell your friends you're only hanging out with cool people from now on. Or D, force yourself to be friends with the person you're being mean to. This was pretty obvious and simple. Putting yourself in the other person's shoes.
Always. Okay, cool. We hope you did well. We hope you were putting your answers in the chat and you did well as we did on the quiz. 100. Smart kids rock.
What do you do if you're being bullied? Here's where we're going to go over what exactly are our steps and what we want to sit up here and do here at Conyers Middle School. First thing we want to do is we want to make sure we disengage with the interacting student. So we want to disengage with that particular student who is trying to bully you, right? If you remember back to the first video, what was it, Miss Wright? We stop,
walk, and tell.
Correct. We stop, walk, and tell. Stop, walk, and tell. Who we tell is we report it to an adult. Teacher, counselor, administrator, or if none of those are available or you don't feel comfortable, your parent, or both, right? We want to make sure you sit up there and actually report that. And then to add an extra step to that, teachers, we want to make sure you report it to the counselors. When it's reported to you, make sure you're going that next step of reporting it to the counselors or myself here at Conyers Middle School. Number 3, do not have a conversation with others about the student or the situation. We don't want rumor mills to go around. We don't want to sit up there and again have a whole big old situation. We want to focus on the issue at hand. I tell my students, do not change the channel. Keep the channel station on the station that we want to focus the issue on. We want to get that issue resolved. We don't want you to feel bullied. We don't want you to be in a bullying situation. So we want to make sure you get that situation addressed. We do that by focusing on the situation and not adding others into the conversation. And the last thing we want to do is we want to make sure we follow up with an adult if the bullying continues. This is critical, okay? Just because you report it the first time, it doesn't mean we haven't done anything, okay? We do, but that doesn't also stop folks initially. It could continue. It might continue, and we want to make sure we do stop it. So if you let us know that it is continuing on, we will make sure and we'll try to address that the best way we possibly can to make sure you're feeling safe. That's the biggest thing. You feeling safe, and again, we want to make sure Conyers Middle School is bully free. Ms. White?
The only thing that I would add to that with the disengaging part, if it's cyberbullying, the way you disengage from that piece is you block the person that's bullying you. Do not go back and forth with them on your social media accounts, and make sure your screenshot, that's part of that reporting it. Screenshot or screen record, whatever it is you need to show to the adults.
Absolutely. Awesome.
That concludes session 7 on bullying. We hope that you truly learned what we set out for you to learn, the definitions of bullying, what it really is, the different types of bullying, as well as what to do if you witness someone being bullied or if you yourself is being bullied. So now, as Mr. Bradley mentioned, as well as Mr. Cunningham earlier, we want you to log in to our 10:15 session so that we can talk about this. Mr. Bradley and I joke a lot during all of that, but bullying is not a joke. And so, it is a serious matter. We want to make sure that students are coming back to the building and they're coming back to a safe environment. Every student has the right to come to school and feel safe. And that's what we want to provide for you all. And we want you to help us help you. So we'll see you in our live lit lesson.